This is what we're calling landmarks and legacies. If you are in La Jolla, you probably know or think of these businesses. We have Adelaide's, which is still run by Gina Phillips, who is the granddaughter of the original owner. Her dad, Harry Phillips, ran it for years after his mom, Adelaide, retired. Harry's, which, oddly enough, I think this is funny because this is a shot that somebody gave us of the inside of Harry's coffee shop. I've never seen it when it was this empty. This is probably when it first opened or when it was remodeled.
Right.
I did not find a shot of the inside of Harry's with people in it or anything beyond that, so I need to get some of those sometime. The Ascot shop, which one gentleman who was volunteering with us, he was in his 70s, said someday when he's an adult, he's going to shop there. And I said, yes, I always feel like a bit of a slob every time I walk by that place. Roadies, which a lot of La Jollans I've never really heard of because I'm not from La Jolla, but a lot of La Jollans, this is one of the earliest plumbers in La Jolla. They're still in business today, and it's still run by the children of the original owners or the grandchildren. In fact, we'll show that in a minute somewhere else. This is E.W. Dehurst on the site of his first job. In 1929, he started his construction business.
Wow.
So, brave man or a very smart businessman. Burns Drugs actually opened in 1952. Robert Burns and Strother K ran it for years and years. And they had actually bought that business from, it was originally called Horton Pharmacy before they took it over. And now it's an institution that everybody knows and goes to. Along with the place that I frequent a lot, I go to a lot of time, Mealy's, which they have supply the paint and a lot of the supplies that we use to put shows on. So.
Right.
Burns Drugs, these are the...
That's a great shot with all the employees there.
Mm-hmm. And Orrin Gotch is, I believe, the gentleman over here. I have not met him yet, but I talk to him on the phone occasionally, and he has so many stories that he can tell about what it was to be in business in La Jolla. Okay, this is, we had Warwick's and Burns Drugs, and here's that Quan Main's down there. That's the business is no longer, but Warwick's and Burns are, of course, still here. Warwick's has been there for years. In fact, I'll be going there today to get Valentine's gift for my wife. And Ross Steele and Son. This was actually the old Brown Bear restaurant that they took over. Ross Steele was an architect and did interior design. His son John took over the business and is still very active, and his son Robert. In fact, they just gave us a wonderful gift yesterday. I haven't got a chance to put it on display yet. One of the early properties in La Jolla was the Green Dragon Colony that was built by Anna Held. And she had over her mantelpiece this plank of wood that was inscribed with a saying about, about life in general. And we have pictures of her standing in front of this mantelpiece. And John Thiel has had that sign. And he finally decided it needed to be saved, so he gave it to us yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So I'm very happy to get that.
Yeah.
I've been looking for that for a long time.
Oh, that's a good score.
Oh, yeah. They're very nice and very good supporters of the society, too. So, in fact, they have a lot of stories that I want to get from them. This is, well, actually, we should go over here.
Okay.
First. This is something that I get really excited about, but I'm generally the only one. We have two logbooks here. This is an electrician's work log there's no date on it, but we're assuming it's from around 1914 because there's a plumber's log that came in with it also. This is exciting to me because it shows a time when things were changing in the 1900s and 1910s. Buildings were being updated and modernized, and so the city started requiring people to have their properties inspected for their electricity and things like that.
Right.
On the other side over here, there was a gentleman named Charles Titchburn who was an employee of the city. He was a plumber, and he was hired by the city to become the plumbing inspector. And his job in La Jolla was to come up here, inspect properties, and to make sure that they were moving their plumbing inside like they were supposed to. Because by 1909, I think they started requiring that all businesses and all private residences move plumbing indoors.
Right.
And his job was to go around and make sure people were complying with that. And here you'll see a list of the the locations and the jobs and who the owners were, and then who the plumber was. And one of the names that comes up frequently is Erling Rhodes. He did a lot of the work here. The funny thing about Charles Tichborne, his name was Charles Tweedy Tichborne, and he was a distant relation to some royal family in England. In fact, for years and years, he was in a fight with his relatives back in London over property rights, and when he died, that argument kind of went away. But here was a man who was a plumber who was actually related to the royal family.
Wow.
And people would say that he was such a great guy that he, rather than find people, he would offer just to find them a plumber or do the job himself to get it fixed so that it would be done. So. And this book is actually, if you want to talk why it's important historically, one, because it shows different, where times were changing. In 1900s, in the 1914s, it was now, laws were changing. You could no longer just build a house and build it however you wanted.
Right.
Cities started caring about health and safety and tying into sewer lines and things like that. It's also interesting because it gives you information about the owners and the properties. And so people could actually use this to trace, either if they're trying to find out when a house was built or who the owner of a property was. That information is all recorded in here. So I find this very exciting, but most people don't. But
I like the way when they put the location, a lot of the locations don't actually give a specific address. It's like the corner of...
Yes. In the early days, they didn't have really addresses in La Jolla. You just knew where things were. And that's why a lot of places will have names for cottages instead of, go down to Cary Crest or something like that because they didn't have an address for it. So
Right. I can see like Klein Street near Fay and
right.
some of these other ones where they don't actually have a specific address.
A friend of mine who's a fireman in Rancho Santa Fe said they have kind of the same problem because people don't like to use addresses there either. So you just have to know where things are by what they're called, by either who owned the house or, that's a lot of way things are done.
And those prices that are there at the end, is that how much the cost was for their plumbing job, or is where it says like on the far column over here?
These are actually dates.
Oh, dates, okay.
As far as, what date it's
Gotcha,
supposed to be.
26, I gotcha.
Yeah. And this is I think this is from 1914. Yeah, 1914 is when this logbook was used. So we let people come through and flip through the registers and through these books just to kind of see what was going on.
There's even like little notes and pages of stuff that are
I
tucked
took
in there.
some of them out, but there's some really interesting like letters and notes and things
Right.
like that. But some of these are actually pasted in for whatever reason, so I just left them there because they're kind of fun to look at.
Yeah, very cool.